From the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello, welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today, I'm very pleased to have with me Andrew, joining me from Chicago in the US. Andrew, thank you very much for being with me on the show today. Although your title is something we start to see more in the field, fractional CMO, fractional CTO. But before we go into this, if you can just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Sure, and thank you for having me on the show, Mehmet. So I've been doing marketing for 15 years. My last full-time role, I was a CMO at a Series B tech company. And currently I'm a business growth consultant where I work with business owners, CEOs, founders to help them drive growth in their business.
Yeah, that's great. Now, the first thing, when I was preparing, Andrew, is you have a different journey, I would say, because you started actually from a tech background. So, and then, you started to be a marketing manager, then a CMO, and now a consultant. Can you walk us through, this journey?
Sure. So growing up, I was very good at math. I was very logical. So I ended up studying computer science in college, really enjoyed that, and then worked in tech for 2 years in the early 2000s. Around that time, I came across online marketing because back then there was no social media. I was just starting out. And all marketing was websites, email, SEO, those, and display advertising. That was what all marketing was. It was intriguing for me because, tech, at least what I did in tech, which was a lot more programming, it felt like I'm communicating with a machine a lot more. Marketing is communicating and influencing people. So that appealed to me in marketing. And funny enough, I couldn't really get a marketing job back then. So I started sort of doing marketing on my own for a few years just to learn it and things like that. So that was, I learned a lot of things there.
That's cool. Now, currently, what kind of companies do you consult for, Andrew? And what do you focus on in this consulting?
Sure. So I typically consult for, I'd call them growth stage companies. So, they're anywhere from 50, 100 employees. As far as revenue, maybe they're 5 million revenue if they're profitable, 10 million if they're VC or PE backed. And they have some product market fit and they're just looking to grow faster and in a more sustainable way. And that's what I help with. So I usually create marketing programs. I coordinate with the sales team. My focus is not just to generate leads for them, but to also ensure that those are converting into actual deals and hopefully customers for them. As far as the types of companies, they tend to be more technology companies. So ad tech companies. I've also worked in supply chain and logistics technology companies a lot. Chicago is a hub for logistics and supply chain. MarTech companies as well, and also sales tech companies.
Okay, that's great to know. Now, you have, led the growth in multiple companies, from Series A to E stages at multiple startups. What are some, of course, we can talk for hours maybe about this, but on a high level, if you can share with our audience some strategies that you implemented to achieve these successes with these startups.
Sure. So, I'll tell you kind of some of my favorites right now. So I think, in 2021, there was a lot of money, flowing around, a lot of investors, investing. So it was easy to do a lot more paid media, and that worked well. But, end of 2022 and now in 2023, a lot of companies are trying to grow, but they have to watch their customer acquisition costs and do it sustainably. So a lot of my strategies are a mix of like brand building and creating demand. So like one of my favorite ones, for example, is like cold email outreach, which is cheap, easy to execute, but you have to do it in a way where you're adding value, not just like pitching, just sending sales pitches. Because if you do it, you're just going to get blocked. So that's one. I like to also work with founders on building their personal brands, because the bigger the brand they have, the more they can just charge for the same product or service, that they're selling. And then I like to also do things like partner marketing, where I, help the companies I work with partner with other companies who are not direct competitors, but go after the same audience. That creates a lot of efficiencies and helps both companies grow.
Yeah, that's great. Andrew, just out of curiosity, you mentioned something about outreaching, I mean, cold email. And you just then said that you help founders and even the companies to build their brand. How much in these days this is important to really start to get inbound leads as well?
So yeah, so it's very important, because the inbound leads, they tend to be the highest quality. They're going to close the fastest, and especially if you're selling something more high end, like whether it's high end consulting, a high end service, or a more expensive product, the inbounds end up even being like higher lifetime value customers. But to get inbound, it takes time, right? So like think about, and I like to use the example of like buying a car, because it's a big purchase. Think about like how many, touch points, brand impressions, conversations, research someone does before they decide like what kind of a car they're going to buy. So it's the same with, marketing. Like if you're selling, especially something high end, there's a lot of touches. So you have to kind of be proactive about it. So that's why, like, even things like building a personal brand as a founder, make it so that you can easily get in touch with the right people that you're trying to sell to. Just because of your brand, they'll see you as an authority. They'll want to talk to you. They'll want to be in your network. So it just creates a lot of opportunities for you futuristically. And it helps you, sort of sell a lot easier.
Okay, that's good to hear. Now, if you can walk me, Andrew, like when you work with a founder or anyone like who want to work on their brand from personal perspective. And I'm asking this question because maybe if a founder today is listening or watching this episode, like what are the key elements that they need to focus on when they start this journey of building their own personal brand?
I think one of the advantages founders have is that they have a founder story. So there's a reason that, they wanted to build their company. Maybe it's something they're passionate about. Maybe, some of the most successful founders actually could never get a full-time job, and they ended up building their company because of that. So whatever the story is, I help them actually, create their founder story. And it's not that I'm, making anything up. I'm just help them tell it in a way that's like emotional, so that when someone hears it, they remember it and it provokes some kind of emotion in them. I'm trying to also have them tell it in a way that puts them in the best light, and also put it in a way where they somehow still touch on what it is that their company does or offers to customers. So working with them on their founder story and how to tell it works pretty well, because then they can take that story, they can tell it on LinkedIn, they can tell it on podcasts or in interviews, and it just makes them a lot more memorable than a founder, versus just another like company name or something that a prospect heard of.
Yeah. So, and we are seeing now, I think podcasting becoming one of the main, I would say, marketing for both personal and even enterprise brands. Now, Andrew, regarding what you mentioned previously, does it apply for B2B and B2C, startups, or is there a different marketing formula? Now, of course, I know the answer, but I want you to like shed some light on this part.
So yeah, so to be fair with you, like most of the last 7 years has been on the B2B side for me. Before that, I did some B2C. I think in B2C, a lot of the branding is based on like working with influencers, working with, even like mini celebrities in your space, and that works pretty well. So you don't necessarily need a person to be the face of the brand, although you could. Like a great example of that is like Michael Jordan and his shoes.
Yep.
However, in B2B, the personal brand matters a lot more because, to be fair, a lot of B2B companies, they do great work, but they're kind of boring. Like, like if you're an accounting software, great, and I'm sure you offer value, but if you tell me the story of why you started your accounting software company in the first place, difficulties you've overcome, and lessons you've learned, like, I'm way more interested in that first, and then I'll want to hear about your software. So I think that's why in B2B, it matters even more.
Do you think like ever we will make it more, I would say, because it's rigid as you said, like B2B, whether it's from sales, marketing, it's really rigid. Sometimes, yeah, like I've seen, I worked in these companies as well myself from consultant perspective. And I always wondered, would we ever have a product? I don't know what's this product yet, that really could be marketed the same way that we market, for example, a shoe, or I don't know, maybe a mobile phone if we want to stay relevant to tech. Like, what do you think? Like, could we see a brand that can do this?
You can see it, but it's more rare, right? So that's why even when it happens, people remember it a lot more. So that there's one small company that comes to mind. They're tiny, so I people outside of marketing and sales probably have never heard of them. They're called Lavender, and they're an email outreach tool. And they created this character. His name is Lavender Joe, and they make these video clips. They're pretty popular on LinkedIn, of Lavender Joe showing up with his neon green suit, just annoying people, to kind of emulate when a CEO gets a sales pitch and it's annoying. And they have actually play a character to show how not to do cold email. And I think it works pretty well for them. In fact, a lot more people know who Lavender Joe is. So that works pretty well, but it's a very strategic approach that they took there, but they approached it almost like a B2C brand, where they realize, hey, we need a character, almost like a Disney, we need a character. Everything's going to be around the character, and then we're going to, introduce the product.
Yeah, that's cool. Cool idea. Because, I wonder why, at least in tech, we know some brands that really, they did cool stuff. Maybe it's not funny, but I mean, I'm a fan, and I'm biased. I'm a fan of Apple products, for example, and I like the way they do marketing, and I always wondered, because I work in B2B all my career. I mean, from consultant perspective, and I always say, why no one can come? But yeah, it's, I think, that the nature of the business itself, and businesses, like, they are taken more seriously, I would say. Now, when it comes to startups and small businesses, Andrew, what are the main trends you are seeing dominating from marketing perspective? Like, where everyone would be going in their strategies in the near future?
Sure. I think the biggest trend right now is obviously how can you use AI to make marketing more efficient, and it's impacting marketing, sales, and customer success. I've been monitoring it more on the marketing side. So questions like, hey, so with these AI tools, for example, can you have a smaller marketing workforce and still produce the same results? Also, a lot of the AI tools currently just do one thing. Is there going to be a super tool that just does it all? That's kind of a lot more sophisticated. So I think that's a very hot trend. So that's something I'm trying to learn myself, trying to even talk about more on my LinkedIn and stuff, because I know a lot of people say that AI is not going to replace jobs, but I'm pretty sure that it will. It's just that it's not going to be a direct one-to-one replacement. It's just going to be creating a lot more efficiencies, where what you needed a team of 10 to accomplish, maybe now you can do it with a team of 5, because they're using these tools.
Yeah. And you took it out of my my next question was actually about AI, and you answered. But just do you think it's more about content creation for AI, or is it about strategies? Like, where do you see it would be effective the most?
So I think right now it's more about a lot of things in marketing that I would call busy work is where AI is really good at. Now you can try it to do, pure content creation or strategy, and it's starting to get better. I don't think it's fully there yet, but what I mean is busy work is like a great example is a lot of, companies have podcasts, right? And they record the podcast interview. They then need to transcribe it. They need to turn it into clips. They're going to create a blog post out of it and just, repurpose it into all these different formats. Well, there's 2 or 3 AI tools that can do all of that for you and do it to where it's like 90% done. And if you have a human, quickly reviewing, putting the final touches on it, now, if it used to take you 4 hours, you can now get it done with 1 hour of work, plus the tools. So it's things like that that are just more busy work and repetitive that AI is getting pretty good at doing.
Yeah, I agree with you actually, Andrew, on this point. Now, coming back a little bit to what you do, and now as a consultant, um, I'm a consultant also myself, and there are some times that I'd say no for me, or it's a yes. Yeah, I would like to help these guys. And for me, it's from tech perspective, sales perspective. From you, it's marketing perspective. So what are, from startups perspective, the things you look for to say, okay, I think these guys are worth it to work with them because, 3 dots. What are like three dots? Like what make something appealing for you from marketing perspective to work with founders?
Sure. So with the founder, like I like to ensure that they at least have a basic understanding of why, marketing even matters for growth. Because, some founders, even this day, still think that, hey, you can just create this awesome product and the product will take off. And sometimes, products do take off on their own, but that's very rare. Those are always kind of the exceptions. So it's, to me, it's like does the founder even understand like why marketing matters? Because I don't want to work with a client where I'm constantly having to convince them that I'm wasting my time and theirs, right? I also like to look at the category they're in. Like, are they in a category where there's a lot more potential for growth, or is it a shrinking category? Because if it's a shrinking category, from a marketing and sales perspective, I'm sure you can help, but you're kind of running uphill the whole time. And then I like to think like, hey, is this, and that last one is more too, because, I've done both. I've worked full-time and I've consulted. If I'm specifically considering like a full-time position, I like to think is like, does this founder or this company have a competitive advantage of some sort? And their competitive advantage could be as simple as, hey, this is a founder who's very charismatic. They're great on video. And whenever they speak, people listen. To me, that's a pretty, interesting competitive advantage, because I know, if I can get them media opportunities, they'll get the brand out there, they'll create a lot of awareness, and that'll generate business.
Yeah, that's I would say good filtering part for me. Like it will be also different. Again, like if they in the first place, I would say if they are not open actually for opinions, I would not work with them, because these guys, they made their mind, so they don't need me. Actually, this is the way I take it. Now, one of your notable achievements actually when I was preparing, like like you have worked with a company, and this day you made them reach a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. Like, how was this experience like, and how it did impact your approach to marketing?
Sure. And so that company was Four Kites, and just to be fair, like it was definitely a team effort. I was one of the first people they hired on their marketing team where they were building it. I was there for 3.5 years, and by the time I left there, it was the second year in a row that they were recognized as a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. So one is they were creating a brand new category, so that was supply chain visibility. Which is a kind of a new set of technology in supply chain management. Supply chain management is a bigger umbrella category. A lot of what went into it was, Four Kites did a great job of creating a lot of brand awareness. So, first year was attending a lot of trade shows and getting in front of people physically, because they didn't even know that the solution existed or that this supply chain visibility was a thing. Later on, it was a lot more, getting media attention, media mentions. We were also, so I worked with a company, called G2 Crowd. They started, covering the category first before Gartner, which is also pretty common. So with G2, I also talked them into creating a brand new category, which is supply chain visibility, because they were trying to just stick FourKites in just supply chain management, which is very broad and got like a lot more mature players in there. So by the time, Gartner was thinking about creating a Magic Quadrant, FourKites, already had such a head start as far as awareness. And it was just FourKites and another, competitor of FourKites that were the two most well-known already. So it was kind of pretty easy to work with the analysts, at that point to get FourKites recognized as a leader. And the funny thing about that is once you're recognized as a leader by Gartner, like unless you do something like really wrong or really bad, you just stay as a leader. Obviously, you have to work with them every year. Their surveys like 100 different questions. It takes like several weeks to even fill out their survey. They interview customers of yours to verify that you're like legitimate. They look at your finances. I mean, the whole process, it's very in depth. So it's not, like the whole process is very serious. But that's what's great about it too, is you end up sort of, being recognized as a leader usually for years to come.
Yeah, that's great achievement actually. Yeah, and I didn't work directly, but from the companies I work with, because they were also, they entered the quadrant down first, and then But I used to know what happens behind the scenes, and yeah, it's a very tough job to get to the leader quadrant actually. Now, one thing I'm a little bit wondering about it. So you were a VP of marketing, and you were a CMO, and now you are a fractional CMO. Would you ever go back, Andrew? Like, and why you choose to become a fractional CMO?
Sure. So the why is because the last company I was at, unfortunately they had a lot of financial problems. They were expecting additional funding. The funding didn't come through. So they did like 2 rounds of layoffs, and through that, my role was eliminated. And then even after I left, which was last December, I heard there was more layoffs and another like 15-20% left. So it's funny, even when I look at LinkedIn now, half of the people I'm connected to who used to work at that company are no longer there. So again, it was just one of those situations where the company had to do layoffs. Since then, I've spoken to other companies, did interviews, just haven't had anything work out. I would love to become, a VP of marketing or a CMO at another company. Ideally, it's a growth stage company. But as you know, like in the current market, a lot of companies are just being very careful about, who they hire. A lot of categories too, like very few categories are even growing. Like AI software is a big one that's growing. Those are like companies that are actually getting funding and things like that. But besides that, a lot of companies in many ways are shrinking, or at least trying to stabilize their revenue and stuff, so they're not, losing money. So that's kind of what got me into doing consulting. The fractional CMO thing is kind of funny because everybody uses that phrase now, but I look at their job history and a lot of them never even led a marketing team before. Like they weren't even a VP. Some haven't even been a director, and now they call themselves a fractional CMO. So that's why too, like I like to say that I'm a business growth consultant, because I'm just trying to get away, from just being bucketed to and kind of that big bucket of everybody calling themselves that. And I'm sure you run into that as well, if with the fractional word.
Yeah, the fractional word recently, there's nothing wrong with it, of course, definitely. And actually, funny enough, when I started to my consultancy like 5 months ago, I call it CTO as a service. And everyone was saying, like, what is CTO as a service? And I start to see people calling fractional. And then I said, okay, the best approach to do it, I say I'm a consultant, right? So just say you are a consultant. And people, if they, nowadays, and back to the point of building the brand, and personal brand. So people, if they want to find someone today, they go to their LinkedIn profile, they would see where they have worked, what they have achieved. They would look, they would do a search about them, and they will find out who are these. So honestly, title for me is not like that big thing, right? So, but of course, like fractional, I've talked to fractional CTOs. I'm talking now to you from marketing perspective. I think I've talked to someone who's planning to do kind of sales as well, sales consultancies, which exist, honestly speaking, they exist for a longer time. Like it's not a new concept. These things going there. But do you think, like Andrew, you touched base on something important, and this is a theory that I have, and I like to share it with my guests. I think there's something broken out there with, let's say, startups who are in the growth stage, scale ups, and people more and more. This is what I'm hearing. Even people they don't share this publicly, but there is a fatigue from all this that happens. Like they are growing, very fast, and all of a sudden you see them like going down and layoff starts. Do you think this will continue, or are we going to have to see a correction in the market after some time where everything goes back, or people will figure out, hey, like Andrew is working as a consultant, Mehmet is working as a consultant, why we don't do it also as well? What do you think we are heading? I know it's a very generative question, but I like to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a great question. So I think the economic slowdown is testing the model of a lot of these startups in that, the economy was on upswing for several years. It was, again, easy to raise funding. A lot of the funding didn't require you to have a great product or any kind of competitive advantage. So if I'm being honest, like, I think a lot of these companies, unfortunately, like if they have a bad business model, won't even necessarily make it. I think the economy will pick up, but nobody knows when and how fast it's going to pick up, right? So even now, it seems like it's not shrinking as fast, or at least it's stabilizing. But if it even stays stable like this for another year or two, well, again, a lot of these startups will run out of the funding that they raised. They won't be able to raise any more, and then they'll go out of business. And I think you're right. I think right now that creates a lot more opportunities for fractional professionals or consultants where, so when a company hires me, for example, I work with them 1 or 2 days per week. They have a small, more junior marketing team, but because I'm working with that team, even within a month or two of working with me, that team has been up-leveled. I help them create a lot of efficiencies because a lot of these things I've done it before. So they're getting the complete playbook from me, and it's a lot more efficient, right? So I don't think, like right now, a lot of these companies can afford a full-time, head of marketing, a full-time, CTO. But if they can work with a fractional, they get the best of both worlds. It's affordable, and they get access to deep expertise.
Yeah. And as you said, time will show us where we will be heading. I have still 2 questions. One, where people can find more about you, Andrew, and your services.
So the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. So I'm pretty active on there. Just send me a connection request, and I regularly post on there about different, marketing strategies and different work I'm doing with companies.
I will make sure I will put your profile in the description of this episode. And I have a very famous last question. Is there anything you wished I asked, or did I miss anything to ask you? And please, you can answer that.
I mean, to be honest, no. I mean, I think you did a great job. I liked how the discussion too, like there were thoughtful questions, but it was more casual conversation. So no, nothing else to add. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Andrew, for being with us today. And as I said, I will be putting Andrew's LinkedIn profile so you can connect with him. You can ask him anything related to marketing, especially, as you know, we focus in the show on startups and small, medium businesses, which I like to help, honestly. So you can reach to Andrew if you have any question. And as usual, if you have any question or feedback about the episode or the show in general, I would love to hear it. You can find me on LinkedIn also as well, where I'm very active, Twitter, and you can send me an email also as well directly. If you would like to be a guest, same as Andrew was today a guest, reach out to me on the same mediums, LinkedIn, mainly LinkedIn, or email, where we can discuss it. We can set up a time and do the recording. And thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you in next episode. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.